Hello and welcome to this episode of The Capitalist Investor. As always, you have me, Diamond Hands D, and the whole team is here. We got Tony the Tiger, Cool Hand Luke. What's going on, guys?
Yo.
Back.
We got a fire for this one. We've got, like Tony just said, we got a bull and a bear, even though I'm kind of both in some ways, but we're talking about good old crypto.
This is Luke's wheelhouse.
I wouldn't say that. I'm just a young guy, I guess people perceive it to be.
And to cut to the chase, personally, maybe not our firm vision, but personally, I'm starting to become a lot more bullish on crypto. And I said that out loud before we started our podcast, and Luke goes, "I'm bearish." I'm like, "Get out of here, man!" Like now I'm just upset. I'm just very upset right now. So, all right, man, kick us off.
Well,
Go
yeah,
ahead,
it
somebody.
seems an odd switch with everything that's going on right now.
Right. And the reason we're talking about it is because over the weekend, Trump has been actively saying that he's pro crypto. He went to a crypto convention and said, "Love crypto. I'm going to fire the SEC commissioner, Gary
Gensler.
Gary Gensler. Not a good guy." Whatever he said. I don't know. He didn't say that. But, Gensler's, he's trying to, unwind crypto because he wants to root out the bad actors. And, Trump's just like, we're going to establish a crypto advisory council, and we're going to be the crypto capital of the planet and the world superpower and Bitcoin. And
Well, how many Americans own some sort of crypto?
I don't know. What's it?
40% is a stat. 40% of Americans.
That's higher than I thought.
I did too.
Yeah, that is pretty high.
I did not think it was that high, but what does that tell you? So he's going after 40% of Americans that own crypto and say, we're going to make you make more money, right? So, I mean, that's going to get more votes for Trump. Of course he's going to be.
I wonder how much that went up since they made, crypto ETFs. Did it go from 20 to 40?
It was like 30 to 70. Yeah. It was down in the 30s, I think, when the Bitcoin ETF first came out.
And now it's up to 40?
Yeah, it's doubled since then, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it just makes it more demand come, when you create an ETF, more people with brokerage accounts can buy it. But, the real interesting thing is, it went from 55,000 to like 70,000 the past 2 weeks because of Trump being outspoken. And by the betting odds, Trump is higher than Kamala in the election of who's going to win. So, theoretically, if you have a president who's pro crypto, pro Bitcoin, that could possibly benefit Bitcoin. But here's where I go: is the more the government gets involved, the less crypto utility, the reason why crypto was built, the less of a purpose, less of a use case there really is. You don't want the government to be in a decentralized asset. That makes it centralized. So if you have Trump talking about adding it to the Federal Reserve's balance sheet and the government's buying Bitcoin, okay, well, that's cool from a demand standpoint.
An asset class standpoint.
Correct, but it literally does away with the whole purpose of why Bitcoin was created.
Does it?
Yes.
I think if major governments are buying crypto, that has to be bullish for the typical investor that wants to be in crypto because demand is diminishing. The supply is diminishing, and your assets should go up. So help me understand that, because that's why I'm bullish. Is the fact
and you're
that
probably right in the short term.
They want to start adding it where this.
Let's put time frames on this. So are we talking about 10 years in the future? Are we talking about next year, next 2 years? Like, time frames are the most important thing in regards to investing, because timing is just wrong timing or good timing, whatever it be, is the same thing as being wrong if you're not right on the timing. So, in the next year or so, I agree that Bitcoin could be, if Trump wins, this could be very bullish with, all the excitement around them at the balance sheet. The problem is what happens once the Federal Reserve adds it to the balance sheet? What happens when the government starts to regulate certain things and transactions? Then you can actually have like the, Venmos, PayPals, Squares of the world that are actually tracking then Bitcoin transaction. It makes the whole decentralized network centralized. And that's like where maybe it's good for the price of Bitcoin, but it's not necessarily good for the asset class as a whole, for the future of decentralized currency outside of a government intermediary. And the question then becomes, well, what's the point of using it then at that point? Why wouldn't we just use U.S. dollars at that point?
Well, I don't understand how anyone has gotten to a point where it is actually going to be 100% deregulated, and like I don't think that was ever an option.
And that would have been
You'd
the
have
best
to.
option.
The U.S. government would have to come in and shut down Coinbase and how I don't even know other. The only way I know to buy Bitcoin because I'm not a complete, but it's through Coinbase.
Right.
I don't know other avenues. Right.
Yeah.
I am personally. I just don't know. I'm sure there's multiples, but
Bitcoin severely and crypto severely needs at some point down the road to be detached from the U.S. dollar. If you always say one Bitcoin's worth $70,000, that means Bitcoin still is not where it needs to be to become not the what it was supposed to be. If you say, hey, I'm going to give you one Satoshi, that's when Bitcoin, and people know what that means, like 0.0001 Bitcoin. If people know what that means and you can transact using one Satoshi, that means Bitcoin became exactly what it was supposed to be. So I think in the short term,
do we know how many Bitcoins were supposed to be
23 million
created?
Like 23 million were created. I think 6 million were like lost already. So like 17 million are like in
but
existence
you can
right now.
still mine more.
Yeah.
So how many are mineable? Total.
That's a good
No
question.
one knows.
I think a couple
There's
million.
a problem. Now here's where all the weird stuff happens. It's like, well, I can tell you what something's worth when I know what the supply looks like.
Right.
So, I mean,
Is a recession? Let's talk about this. Is a recession good or bad for crypto?
a recession.
This is the big debate. This is really what's going to drive price action, not whether or not Trump, is pro Bitcoin or not. I think the true price action that's going to come is when we do have a recession. Is crypto going to diverge from traditional asset classes, or is it going to go down with risk assets?
What causes the recession?
That's an important question, I guess, right?
So if the recession, obviously a recession is probably going to be caused by loss of jobs and slow growth, things like that. And what slow growth comes loss of jobs and people not spending money. But what about our debt? Like, when's that going to just like kind of rear its ugly head, or Judgment Day is what I'll call it, because they are racking up.
Well,
debt.
that's called loss of reserve currency, right? What happens when the U.S. dollar loses reserve currency?
Right.
Is that pro Bitcoin?
That's got to be that. That's the other thing. That's my other take on it. It's like it's all about. I'm worried about the government debt.
Yes.
And when it becomes not the world currency, which it's already whispers, right? Every now and then it comes up in, a news article here and there. That has got to be bullish.
Yeah.
Unless the government gets their hands and regulates it.
So let me ask you this: is the government's is the reason why Trump's pro Bitcoin and why the government's getting more involved because they're thinking is going to be the saving grace of the U.S. dollar reserve currency?
He said he
because
wants to be the Bitcoin power of the world. Yeah, you would want to start.
Isn't that scary though? If we're preparing for the loss of the U.S. dollar being reserve currency, if we're preparing for owning Bitcoin and if we have more Bitcoin than anybody else as a country, then we are then the reserve currency. What's more concerning, the fact Bitcoin's going up or the fact that we lost U.S. dollar?
It's scary, but I'm glad that somebody's thinking of a contingency plan.
Agreed.
The contingency plan might not be like, it might cause the worry, but I'm glad somebody's thinking about it and not trying to completely.
But this is why we always
deregulate
recommend people own, like if you want to be involved, and this sounds interesting, like we do recommend 1% allocation. Like that makes sense. Because if Bitcoin does become what it's supposed to be, it's going to be $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a coin because it can replace the US dollar, other currencies.
Before our show started, Luke, you said
I'm talking short term.
So, all right, but
I think in the
short term.
I think it's still going to be attached to risk assets. So let me go through my quick overview. Next year or two, I think it's going to be attached to risk assets. I think in the next year or two, you're going to have weakening economic data. You're going to see Bitcoin probably take a turn because it's still going to be attached to kind of like the NASDAQ, right? And then once you get through this recession, we kind of bail things out, lower rates back down. We print more money. We bail things out. Bitcoin will find its footing and we'll probably rally with risk on assets. And then 5 to 10, 15, 20 years down the road, whatever it be, when debt issues actually start to really, really matter, it's not 130% of GDP, it's 200% of GDP. It's not 14% of net interest debt. It's 20, 25, 30% net interest debt or GDP, net interest we're paying according to our GDP. That's when Bitcoin really rallies and probably gets its footing $1 million a coin, things like that. So I'm bearish in the short term just because I think it's still attached to risk assets. I am ultra bullish in the long term as long as governments don't ban it. It doesn't
short
sound
term,
like
you're
they want it.
bearish, though.
Correct.
And you made a comment before this thing started. You said you feel Bitcoin's going to 40. Or you said
I
you're
think
not.
it's
You're not. You said so. I don't want to air
70
your laundry out
yep.
here, but you said you divested from.
There's a
Bitcoin.
Business Insider article. So back when Tony and Mark started giving me my media opportunities, Business Insider article from 2021. I said Bitcoin's going to drop from like 65, 70,000 back down to $20,000 because historically Bitcoin has 70, 80% corrections when times are bad. Oh. So that exactly is what happened. Now I think it's probably going to be something similar. We could see $75,000, $80,000 by the end of this cycle, and you're probably going to see 70, 80% correction. So you're going to see probably drop below $40,000, maybe even $30,000 again, and that's when I'll pick it back up. I've ridden 2 cycles already. I've ridden it from 2018 to 2021, then I rid it from 2023 to about 2 months ago when we sold at $69,000. I'm gonna ride this next cycle.
You're gonna.
Maybe I'll be wrong this time.
But so if you get it wrong, you'll never be in Bitcoin.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
Okay. No FOMO over there.
Yep.
All right, guys. So yeah, crypto. I mean, man, it's just I'm a little bit more open and bearish or bullish towards it because of all of the political stuff going on these days. Is honestly why I'm interested in it. The utility of it is still, kind of awkward.
Yeah.
They haven't really found a way to really move the currency.
There's political risk.
To buy stuff?
There's political risk too. How much energy consumption it takes to mine Bitcoin and things like that.
Well, yeah.
Sure. Especially if you combine that with
the halving really did that. So it takes probably twice as much energy to create a coin these days.
So when you have an energy grid that's probably not sustainable between electric cars and then between AI implementation, once things start to break a little bit, like you're going to see politicians, probably Democrats, go after regulating Bitcoin, whatever it be, or like trying to regulate not necessarily Bitcoin, but regulating the power consumption of Bitcoin. That's a political risk.
Yep.
That'll hurt supply.
It will.
Another bullish signal.
That's right. That's true.
All right, guys.
Well, good stuff this week. If you guys have any questions or show ideas, send us an email at info@swpconnect.com, and we'll talk to you next week.
The opinions expressed in the podcast are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any investment, legal, financial, or tax strategy. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. Please consult a qualified professional about your individual needs.